Hello people of the internet, my name is Nell and I have recently lost almost all of my hearing in both ears due to sudden sensory neural hearing loss. And I just thought I'd make this video to let people know that this is a thing that can happen, because I didn't even know this was physically possible until it happened to me, and if I'd known sooner I might have been able to save some of my hearing. So just so people know that this can actually happen. Sorry, I've got a piece of paper here with like notes on it, so that's why I'll keep looking down. So the symptoms of sudden hearing loss are just sudden hearing loss, and also I got vertigo and like everything looked like it was spinning, and it wasn't affected by movement. The vertigo was just constant, and also a feeling of like pressure in your ears, like if you're on a plane, you know, if you're on a plane you get the pressure and you kind of pinch your nose and blow, and that releases the pressure. That sort of sensation, but I couldn't release it. You know, the pressure was just kind of there. The causes, in most cases they don't find like a specific cause, like they can't tell me exactly what caused it in my case, but the kind of general things that can cause it would be like an ear infection or an autoimmune problem, or even like a food allergy, or so anything that can cause an inflammation can cause this. It's quite rare. It's much more common to have it in one ear. In about 90% of cases it's one ear. I'm just really unlucky, so I had both ears within a couple of days of each other. What you should do if this happens to you, if you notice a sudden drop of hearing in one or both ears, you need to go to A&E within 24 hours, or speak to your GP. If you can't speak to your GP within 24 hours and see them, you need to go to A&E and get high dose steroids or IV steroids to try and bring down that inflammation. And if you catch it quickly, you may recover some or all of your hearing. However, after about 48 hours, the chances of improvement become much lower. So in my case, I didn't, and now I am profoundly deaf in both ears. So what happened to me was in the beginning of June 2020, it's now the end of June 2021, so about a year ago, I started having vertigo and like a pressure sensation in my ear, and kind of mildish hearing loss. And I called up my GP. It was in the middle of lockdown, so they said that it was probably labyrinthitis, and it would get better on its own after a couple of weeks. For me, it got better on its own within a couple of days, so I just thought I was really lucky and carried on as normal. But it kept recurring, with the vertigo, and it was really strange because it would come on really suddenly, and it would last half an hour to about a day, and then it would just stop as quickly as it started, just come on and go off. So I just thought it was weird, and I just kind of ignored it. And the vertigo wasn't that bad, I could still kind of function. I just felt a bit like nauseated and stuff, but I could still function. And it was only every couple of weeks that I was having these vertigo attacks, so I just kind of ignored it, because obviously there were bigger problems going on in the world. And then at the end of April this year, 2021, I had a really, really awful bout of vertigo, and like, you know, could barely, like, couldn't stand, was like crawling along the floor, being sick, like the works. And I called my GP, and they suggested, you know, they told me to come in, and she said she looked in my ears. I thought I just had, you know, like a really awful ear infection. I was like, you know, I've got this awful ear infection. It's just been recurring for like a year. You know, I think I need some serious antibiotics. And she kind of looked in my ear and was like, I don't think there is an... Oh, also I'd lost the hearing in that ear, in my left ear. And she kind of looked at my ear and was like, I don't see any infection or anything. So it could be something else. It could, you know, she thought it could be Meniere's disease. Turns out it wasn't, but she was along the right lines. So she wrote me a referral to ENT. But then the vertigo stopped, and I still didn't have hearing in that ear. And then a couple of days later, I had another hideous bout of vertigo, and I lost the hearing in the other ear. And at this point, I normally live with my boyfriend, and my parents live quite far away. So I was off work at this point, and I phoned my mum, and I was like, you know, I have the most awful vertigo. It's not going, and I was trying to talk on the phone, and the only way I could hear anything at all was have headphones on and have it turned up at maximum volume on my phone. And my mum also had her phone on she had it on speakerphone and was shouting into the phone. And I was still really struggling to hear. I was like, you know, I can't hear, and I still can't hear you. And I've got everything turned up to maximum. And she kind of was just like, this isn't right. You can't wait for the referral because, you know, it's taking too long. This was about a week after I lost my hearing, and she came up to see me, and she hadn't really... Oh no, sorry. So I had an appointment. I saw an ENT consultant privately because my dad has like private health insurance with his work or something, and we have I'm on it even though I'm like an adult. I don't know how, but we paid to see someone privately, and he I went on my own. My mum wasn't with me at that point. I went on my own, and I had to, because everyone had masks on and everything, I had to go up to the desk and say, like, you know, when they call my name, I'm not going to be able to hear them. So, you know, someone will need to, you know, come and collect me from the waiting room, because I can't hear anything. And I had this appointment, and he kind of didn't really know what it was. He thought it could be Meniere's disease, or it could be, you know, some other stuff, and wanted me to have an audiogram to see how bad my hearing was. So this appointment was on the Tuesday, and my mum, and the audiology appointment was on the Friday, and my mum came up on the Thursday to stay overnight and take me to my audiology appointment. So she took me to this audiology appointment, and they checked my hearing. They did like one with kind of, they did one where they put a thing in your ear and it kind of tests some reflex or something, and I didn't have the right like reflex, and they did one with headphones and the beeps, and you press the button and they did one with like a headband kind of thing that kind of presses on your head, and the beeps, and you press the button, and they did kind of words. You had to kind of see how many words you could hear, and they said that I had a severe hearing loss. At that point, I'd lost low frequencies down to 90 decibels and the higher frequencies down to 70 decibels. So it was all in the severe category. And so my mum took me back to where my family live, and I was given high dosage of steroids. That was at the first appointment that I had. Before I had the hearing test, they put me on some steroids to see if that would help, but at this point it was kind of too late for anything to work. So after that, came back to where my family live, and we saw a different consultant in Southampton, and he tested my hearing again. This was about a week later because there was a bank holiday, and so this was about a week after my first hearing test. He tested my hearing again and said it had all got worse, and it was now severe to profound. All frequencies were kind of down at 85, 90 decibels. I had, very, very little hearing. Yeah, and I got steroid injections in my ears, and more high dose steroids. It didn't do anything. They told me it wasn't likely to work at this stage, but they said it was worth a try. So wasn't going to do any harm. So I did it anyway, and it didn't work as anticipated. So I've now got some hearing aids. We had to get them privately because the backlog on the NHS was massive after lockdown, and they refused to see me. Well, they said they'd have to refer me somewhere else to do it because they said it was because it was too complicated, but it's not that complicated. I think it was just that they were so backlogged that they couldn't take me. So I am being referred somewhere else, but at the moment I have got some hearing aids. So I am profoundly deaf now, but that doesn't mean I'm completely deaf. I've got my audiogram here to show everyone. So this is for my right ear, and this line, the line that's the 90 decibel line, and that's the borderline for where it's considered profound. So I'm literally right on that line, and then my left ear's very similar. I think my left ear is very slightly better, but it's very, very similar in both ears. So yes, I am currently off work because I work as a dental nurse, and that's not really compatible with being completely deaf. I've had my first cochlear implant consultation because I still can't hear very much even with hearing aids. So I've had my first consultation. I've got another thing to do with that this coming week. Yeah, so that's where I am at the moment. So next thing I wanted to talk about was how this has kind of affected my life, because some things you would think of, and there are some things that it's affected that you wouldn't necessarily know. So obviously, like, communication is quite difficult. I've got some quite powerful hearing aids, and all I can hear of speech is like like, it just kind of sounds like noise. It vaguely sounds like speech, but I can't hear what people are saying. You know, I can just kind of hear the noise, so I'll know if someone is talking, but I don't know what they're saying, so I kind of have to rely on lip reading, and obviously I'm not very good at it because I've only had about a month of practice. That's really different, especially in shops and everything now. Everyone's got masks on, and obviously people don't know that I can't hear anything by looking at me, because, you know, it's not obvious. People have masks on and everything, so that's really hard. Also, my balance, the part of the ear that's damaged for me is the part, it controls hearing but also controls balance. So my balance is all off. I don't have any kind of proper spinning vertigo anymore. I just am very conscious of my head moving, and that sounds really odd, but like, if I'm walking, everything kind of looks like it's going like like along with my head moving. Everything looks like it's kind of moving, like I can't keep my eyes on one thing as I walk. And like, in the dark, my balance is terrible. Like, I can't balance at all. Everything, you know, everything is kind of based on my eyes. I've also got tinnitus, worse in my left ear, which is actually my better hearing ear. I mean, not by much, but yeah, I have very slightly better hearing in my left ear and worse tinnitus in my left ear. But that makes it kind of difficult to sleep. Since I've got hearing aids, that's actually a bit better, but still, like, it's there. Also, like, emotionally, it's quite difficult. You know, also, and sleeping. Sleeping is quite hard because of the tinnitus, and also just because I can't hear anything, and I feel very kind of vulnerable going to sleep. Crossing roads, anything like where I'm walking, you know, if I'm walking on my own down a street, I can't hear the cars or anything, so I just feel I'm going to get run over. So I have to be like super careful kind of looking, and you know, I get quite scared to cross roads if I can't see really well. You know, if I can't, you know, if it's not a completely clear view, I get quite scared. Obviously it's affected my family. Normally I live with my boyfriend, and now I'm currently living back with my family because it's closer to the auditory implants centre. And my boyfriend works and everything, and I can't drive, so, you know, it's just easier. It's easier living with my family at the moment. Also, I thought I'd go in case anyone else is in a similar situation, because while this is rare, it's not like 5 people in the world. Like, it's quite rare, but it's more common than you'd think. Bearing in mind, I didn't even know this was physically possible. The things that have helped, and obviously other people lose their hearing for like various reasons, things that I found that help, obviously the kind of obvious stuff like hearing aids, and trying to learn to lip read, trying to learn a little bit of sign language. I'm not very good, but I'm trying. There's something called Live Transcribe, and I'll see if I can get it to work on, because I'm filming on my phone, but I've got like my old phone. Okay, no, it's not working. Oh, it's turning on. Okay, I'll put that aside and I'll show you that later. Obviously you can put the captions on the TV. My phone also has a caption call option, so that's good. I have a Fitbit. I've got this Fitbit thing. I got this specifically because I lost my hearing. I didn't have this before. And you can set like timers and alarms, and it vibrates, which is helpful. And it also can, you know, it vibrates when my phone rings. It does all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, it vibrates when I get text messages and all of that. Also have a special alarm clock because if you sleep quite deeply, this isn't going to wake you up. It's not like a super strong vibration. So if you're awake, you can feel it, but it's not super, super strong. So I've got a special alarm clock. It's like this. I got it for like £20 on Amazon, and it's got like a night light, so it can, you know, it turns off and on, which is really helpful at night because I get a bit scared, and also my balance is terrible in the dark, so I need a light. So you've got the alarm clock part, and then you've got this, which is just like a pad, and you put this under your pillow and it vibrates, and it's a bit of a stronger vibration than the Fitbit, so it's more likely to wake you up. One thing to note about this though is it goes through batteries like nobody's business. The batteries, it takes 3 AAA batteries in this, and they last about like a couple of weeks, so you might want to invest in some rechargeable batteries as well. You can also get them where this bit is attached by a wire to the actual alarm clock, so it uses mains power, so it's not using up so many batteries, but I didn't get that sort of one because and I've also got one of these sunflower lanyard things, which is just, it's a thing in the UK just for hidden disabilities. Mama says, I have a hearing loss, and you can put this on in like shops and stuff so people know there's something wrong with you, so they don't shout. Especially because if I'm with someone else who has a mask on, they have to kind of pull their mask down to speak to me, and I don't like confrontation, so it's, you know, best if I have something, because I don't want people to be cross with me. And also people like, you know, try to speak to me in shops and stuff. I don't hear them. You know, if someone wants to get past and they're going, excuse me behind me, I'm not going to hear it because there's background noise there, so I can't hear anything. In like a busy environment, I can't hear anything. Let's see if this is on now. Oh yeah. So let's find. So this is Live Transcribe, and everything I say appears on my phone screen. So that's quite helpful. So that's something you might be interested in. There's also on iPhones. I don't have an iPhone, but my mum does. So if you have an iPhone, you can get AirPods, and there's a live listen function, which this would be if you don't have hearing aids. Before I got hearing aids, this is what I kind of used. So you put the AirPods in your ears, and it has to be the like Apple AirPods. It can't just be any Bluetooth headphones, because that would be too convenient and cost effective. You have to use AirPods and an iPhone, and someone can speak into the microphone on the phone, and it will go, and the sound will be amplified through the AirPods. You just have to make sure that the volume's high enough for you to hear it. That kind of worked. That kind of worked for me. It's not as good as hearing aids, obviously, but yeah. There's yeah, so I think that's about everything. I've mentioned the caption call on my phone. Yes, so that's everything. Yeah, I might make some more videos about my caption call, my cochlear implant process. Yeah, I've got some, yeah, okay. Thank you, everyone, who's probably nobody. There's probably nobody watching this, but thank you anyway. Bye!